This is the Development Review Board meeting for August 19th. I am vice chair of the board. We'll go through the items on the agenda in the order in which they appear. All of the presentations have been posted. Any late additions aware of staff?
Nothing's been posted except that this application is
Provide a landscaping plan. I haven't had a chance to post the package yet.
Okay.
Came in earlier today.
Thank you. So with that, our first agenda item is ZP-25-325, 322-324 St. Paul Street. Are you the applicant?
We are.
Great. Have a lot of people here. It would be helpful if we could swear everyone in for this item from the start. So if this is an item that you would like to speak on, if you would, please raise your right hand and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under pains and penalty of perjury for this item?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Thank you. Anyone else online? I'm assuming you have been sworn in. Okay. Can you just state who you are, and then walk us through what you'd like to?
Sure. I'm Michael Monty. I'm the CEO of Champlain Housing Trust. And I'm just going to say a few comments, and some other folks from CHT will get up very quickly to be able to present the application along with our consultants who we brought along to answer any questions. Let me just say broadly that we've owned this property for a number of years. And we owned it as a four-unit apartment complex for many decades. At one point, the folks at the Howard Center needed a group home, and we converted it into a group home for their management and use, which they did up until about a year or two ago. At that point, we then transitioned to be empty, and then began to sort of respond to the refugees who were coming into Burlington, and had an agreement with the USCRI and U.S. Committee of Refugees. And that group in particular was in charge of sort of master leasing the property from us. I want to state this because the property itself has had a series of other people managing the property. Well, first was an agreement with Howard Center for a licensed 3 group home, and most recently as sort of a transitional location for folks who are refugees coming in. Let me say that we were not happy with the last use. In particular, we found ourselves, well, I'll say we were happy with responding to the need for the last use, but we weren't necessarily happy with the condition of the property. And the plan that we have in front of us is the opposite of that. It really is going to be providing support and need for families, for adult children who are disabled, providing them with both the ability to have a good home and to have community as well. It's night and day. The people who will be coming into the property, who will be living there, will be people like my son and those parents. They don't have many places to live where they can get the kind of support that they need in order to be able to be successful in this community. This is a great location for them. And we're doing this here. We're doing this potentially up in on North Avenue. We're talking to folks in Williston right now. And there is a movement in the state of Vermont for the 600 identified families who are in this particular condition, this situation, where the adult children do well, but having community, having support is critical, and doing this in this way is being seen as the next great step for us as a community to support people who live in the state of Vermont. So that's just the introduction. That's why we're here. We certainly could go back to doing what we were doing before. We don't think that that was the best use for this property. We think this is a much better use of this property, and we think it would be a much better neighbor for anyone around who lives near this property. So that's my introduction.
Thank you, Michael.
These folks will take it over.
Aaron, do you want to join me? Sure. So I'm Kirsten Merriman Shapiro. I work for Champlain Housing Trust. And with me tonight, I have Taryn Barrett from Duncan Wisniewski Architecture, who's the architect, Kevin Morgan from Engineering Ventures, who's our engineer on the project, and Miranda Lescaz, who is my supervisor and boss at CHD, my colleague,
Director of Real Estate.
the Director of Development. Thank you, Michael. I could not search for that. And we're here tonight to talk about our project, answer any questions you have. For 322 St. Paul, as Michael said, this is an opportunity for us to change the dynamic that's been happening there and to change the use from what was single room occupancy group home into 10 apartments with support available for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. With that, I don't want to take up too much time because I know you have other items on the agenda. But we're happy to walk through anything or answer any questions you might have and along the way. And if there's something specific you want to know, just please let us know.
I think it was pretty straightforward, so I do want to just ask if the board has any specific questions they'd like more detail on. And then, thought you did say there was detailed landscaping plan that was new, maybe that's something. But that's for this item, is that right?
Yeah, you get a landscape plan. Is that something you wanted to bring up, Karen? Looks like you're sitting over there with our laptop, so I can bring it up.
I do have a laptop, but I enjoyed the
Okay.
meeting, honestly. The landscaping plan is pretty straightforward. We are looking at doing additional landscaping, but right now, we have concluded that there are 2 trees that need to be removed as a part of our project. One is at the back property line and is not in good health based on an expert's review of the tree. And there's another that is located in the patio area that we discussed with an landscape architect about developing a patio around it, but ultimately decided that that would not be best for the tree's health or for our users in the patio. So we're proposing that we remove that. So you can see that 2 trees are dashed. The other existing trees that we think are in front of our building or within our property line are also shown. And we'd be keeping those.
Any questions from the board?
I do.
Yeah.
I was looking at the perspective, St. Paul Street, perspective of the elevations, and I'm just wondering what, can you tell me a little bit more about what I see here are 3 entrances to the building, 2 on the south and 1 on the west. And I just want to know how you feel about any other type of egress from that, like an emergency egress. Is that all on the north side of the building through windows, or how is that? How did you come to that?
Well, there is some history to the building. So the west is the facade that you cannot see from here. And it has a set of stairs that go up to a porch. And there are 2 doors that access the building, which used to be a duplex. And so we're retaining that as part of the character of the original structure. But those 2 red doors on the top elevation are certainly not accessible, and they're not opening into larger community spaces. So our primary entrance that we see for residents who live here is on the south facade, and that is the red door with more glass that's underneath that yellow gabled volume. And that door can be accessed from the ADA parking spot, the patio, all in a level way.
Great.
And does that lead to several, 2 or 3 or 4 apartments with?
Yeah, so when you enter that door, there is a vestibule that'll have a mail access and a package room. And then you go through that airlock and there will be a community kitchen with some common space for residents to gather. And then if you continue to the east in the addition wing, you'll access new apartments. And if you go to the west, you'll access some office staff space that might be there. And then the apartments that we're going to retrofit into the existing structure. There is another door on that facade, as you pointed out, that's under an existing canopy. And that goes into what we're programming as like a community living room or dining room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miles or Marina, any questions from your side?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, with that, then we will go to commentary. A lot of people raised their hands, so, I don't know where I'm gonna start, but starting in the room, and then we'll go to our comments online. So when you come up and provide your commentary, it's helpful if you share your name, and where you live.
With apologies to everyone, I need to leave for a meeting at City Hall, so if I may, with Madam Vice Chair's permission, thank you very much. So, Madam Vice Chair, members, thank you. My name is Bram Klepner. I serve in the Vermont House of Representatives. The property at 322 and the neighborhoods around that property are in the district I represent. And I was here at the hearing during the summer and listened very carefully to the concerns of the neighbors around the property and listened very carefully to the parents and families and advocates for the adults with developmental and learning disabilities. And having heard all that and thought on it, I want to say that I support this project. And I also share the understanding of the historic issues that have occurred for people who live nearby. And one of my observations is that people who don't have a relationship with either the mental health community or the developmental disability community don't the differences between those groups and communities are not always obvious. And I think the dysregulated behavior, the loud language, the bad language, the people feeling it's unsafe for their children to be in their backyards, it feels like symptoms of people who have mental and psychological illness, and that is very different from developmental disabilities. So as I say, being very careful to weigh the needs of the people in the neighborhood and their children and their families and their yards. I do believe the impacts from this project won't be at all like the impacts that those communities have experienced. I did see the letter from Amy and David Conger. I think some of their requests to have a known contact number and assurances about the ongoing use of the house are worthy of consideration. And as I said, weighing it all out, I support this project and hope we will find a way to go forward. Thank you.
You want to join me? Hi, I'm Dave Conger. Obviously just referred to. Myself and my wife are residents of 17 Spruce Court, and we did submit some information that we thought was pertinent. And I'll start with saying we support this project, but there's a big however. And the big however is that differentiation between developmentally disabled or mental health care. And even if it is mental health care, the history that we've experienced there is purely poor management. It's not the population, it's the management that didn't occur. And our concern here is because honestly, we've gone down this path before. When this became a group home, we were given assurances. Those assurances did not occur. And we submitted 10 years of police reports that show that has been the case of a poor neighbor, a nuisance neighbor for that duration. So where we're struggling with this as a supporting of it is what rails can be put on this project to maintain that there is support for the residents. If that's done by Howard or another entity or not, as well as that the dynamic won't change, that the population is what is being presented now. Because unfortunately, once an approval goes through, we're calling the police, we're calling Howard, we're calling Champlain Housing Trust. So our concern is, it's a needed thing in the community. And like anything else, if it's managed properly and done properly, it's a great thing. But our lived experience has been more than a decade of poor management. And I would like to also say that, this is a Champlain Housing Trust property. It has always been Champlain Housing Trust property. So that comes to cleaning up the neighborhood, debris on the site, both in the current use as well as the former use. So I think it's a little bit of a misdirection that this has been managed by others. It is again a Champlain Housing Trust property, has always been. So where is the dynamic changing in the future of how it's going to be managed and done in the future? So that's our primary concern, because it has been especially in summertime, don't want your kids outside kind of thing. So that's our kind of statement to that, and we submit some information for the board to review as well.
A question for you on
Sure.
information, because what was uploaded, at least for our packet, was really just Burlington Police Department annual report, so it didn't have the specifics of calls to.
We sent that the second email. We actually uploaded, I think, the wrong thing the first time, but there is a police report that was intended to be uploaded that had a long list of the actual complaints, and it was certainly there was a mix of I'll call it, medical kind of visits, but there was a significant amount of nuisance calls in that report. And if Scott doesn't have it, we can certainly forward that.
I have that one email. I had two emails, but
Oh,
the only distinction was the second email had photographs in format.
It was in the, I had sent one to you and then there was a contact to the office, so you sent it to the second contact.
Okay.
But you were CC'd on that second one, so it was a different one. I also just want to say again, like we
Would
fully,
you mind just, because we do have people online, if you can see up here.
we support this as is, like this is something we believe in and feel is needed. It's the history that we're concerned about. So I just want to be very clear about that. Like this presentation sounds great. The need for it sounds great. It's not always been great with how it's changed use. So that's our concern.
Thank you.
So
Well, we have lots of other comments, so we'll make sure that.
And if it needs to be resent, we can certainly do that as well.
Your comment, no?
My glasses, hang on.
Ready. Okay, so I prepared something. Good afternoon. My name is Katie Tormey and I live in Burlington. My daughter Emily is 37 years old and has Down syndrome. I'm also a member of DDHI, the Developmental Disabilities Housing Initiative. We're a parent-led volunteer advocacy group of over 125 parents throughout the state who are working towards the development of stable, service-supported peer residences for our adult children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, many of whom have significant support needs. Emily was born in Burlington, went through the Burlington school system, and graduated from BHS. Burlington is her home. Burlington is where she knows people at the Bagel, Hannaford's, YMCA, and they know her. The governor, it was only 30 years ago that Brandon Training Center closed its doors. The governor at the time, Howard Dean, made a promise that this population of Vermonters would be housed, cared for, and integrated into their communities. Unfortunately, since that time, the state has relied on the shared living provider model for housing of our adult children with IDD, which is essentially adult foster care. This model can be isolating with little to no oversight and is never a permanent home. Our adult children deserve better. As of 2 years ago, there was estimated greater than 600 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are in need of this permanent supported housing. There are many models of supported housing for adults with IDD throughout the country, but unfortunately not in Vermont. We parents are aging, and the continued caring of our adult children is just not sustainable. The housing development at 322 St. Paul Street will be one of the first of many supported housing communities throughout Vermont in the near future. This unique model combines permanent, affordable housing, individualized support services, and community inclusion. The design meets the needs of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities with a range of support needs, including 2 units for those with higher support needs, generally necessitating extra support staff. Thank you for your support of this much-needed supported housing at 322 St. Paul Street. We parents thank you, and our adult children will thank you.
Hello. I'm Donna Roberts. I live in Burlington's New North End, and I'm the mother of a 27-year-old son with autism. And I'm here today because I want to express my strong support for the community housing project proposed for 322 St. Paul Street. Our families with adult children with developmental disabilities are struggling. As my friend Katie said, we're struggling because we're aging. Yet many of us are still taking care of our adult kids with disabilities. This is the time in our lives when we should be turning to things like retirement, helping with grandchildren, volunteering, giving back to our communities in other ways, or in some cases, like my husband and myself, trying to continue to work and pursue a graduate degree. Until very recently in Vermont, supported housing situations have not been allowed for people like my son, other than a few very specialized residences. And what Champlain Trust is putting together, this extraordinary project at 322 St. Paul, is part of a long overdue solution in Vermont that exists in most other states. Our family moved here from Pennsylvania, where our son would have had a safe, supported space and one of many community housing programs for people with autism and other developmental disabilities. We moved to Vermont for quality of life, not realizing that the opportunities here to support our son outside of our home are basically non-existent other than a foster care paradigm. So this project is really about quality of life for our adult children and for the communities in which they live. We're talking about housing for some of the most vulnerable members of our population, and it's about including everyone. Inclusion and diversity. Healthy neighborhoods are diverse. It's about people who don't necessarily look or behave the same way. Do our adult children sometimes behave or speak in awkward, inappropriate ways? Absolutely. But who among us doesn't sometimes? He also loves socializing, greeting people on the bike path, in grocery stores. Our adult children also have strengths and abilities that sometimes exceed those of neurotypical folks, like incredible memories and musical abilities. Neurodiversity is not a bad thing. Healthy neighborhoods, like healthy environments, are not homogeneous. My son's OCD impacts his life much more than his autism. He can spend hours cleaning the kitchen, our closets, our fridge. Maybe you'd like to hire him? For 3 years, he volunteered weekly at the Salvation Army. He's worked at Resource and the Pingala Cafe on North Avenue. In high school in Pennsylvania, he worked at Carnegie Library. But he needs a lot of support, and he wants to contribute, to be fully engaged in his community. What he does not want is to continue living with us, his parents. That's been our collective goal since before he graduated from high school. This project at 322 St. Paul in so many ways is an answer to our prayers while meeting a critical need in Burlington and Chittenden County. I've been working with our Developmental Disability Housing Initiative and Champlain Trust for several years, identifying properties and locations that could serve our adult children well. St. Paul Street, being on the bus line and in a walkable area close to downtown, meet so many of our families' needs, just like it would for anyone. We look forward to this desperately needed project coming to be and for the opportunity for our children, our loved ones, to get to know their neighbors and to be able to have all the opportunities that other adults that we all deserve. Thank you for listening.
Sharon's had her hand up for quite a while. Yeah, I was going to go through the room first. I would go to. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak?
Good long.
Hi, I'm Jen Townley, and I'm just going to, they've said it all. But I just want to thank the work that's gone on with Champlain Housing Trust as part of the Act 186 grant, as well as with Taryn from Duncan Wisniewski. They surveyed our families, they surveyed our kids, say what looks like home to you. So they took a lot of their input, as well as looking at the needs of our kids and what they're going to need to stay in a forever home. So I just want you to know there's a lot of work that has gone into this. I think it's critical that our state communities move forward with this. And I just want to thank them and let you know there's been a lot of homework and back and forth, learning about how they do business, how our kids need, what they need for supports and stuff like that. And just hope we can have your support for this very important project, given the demand across the state that is needed for housing for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this item?
Say that a lot of kids.
With that, Sharon Kosher, I see that you have your hand up. If you'd like to share your public comment now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to get to my specific questions about the proposed development, but I would be remiss in not just saying that I learned a lot from the family members that spoke today, and realized and knew before that this type of, it's co-housing. I live on East Avenue. There's co-housing where you have community members coming together for dinner. It's that shared living experience and a support, and within the community itself. And then you have staff here for those who need additional support. I think this is an excellent model. For those that are worried about enforcement, I think that is something that is difficult. And I do believe that I think the city needs to think honestly about how we can do better. Champlain Housing took over the management of the pods, and there was a real steep learning curve of how to manage that and the population. I think because there are on-site people here, I'm hoping that what is feared won't be realized, but I do believe that we as a city need to act more promptly in trying to resolve any kinds of unanticipated problems that we experience from any new development going in. And so I just wanted to speak to that in generalities. Now, specifically, these are just nitty-gritty things. I did follow this project through Design Advisory Board, and the historic house in the front, they mentioned that the windows would be fiberglass windows, and yet in other staff comments that get reported to you, it will say that the materials are consistent with what materials are appropriate for historic structures. It didn't say that I could see, and so I just would like just clarification on that for the historic portion of the project. And then the other thing that wasn't addressed, I didn't see a submitted landscaping plan, although there was discussion about how many trees would be removed. But there is also going to be removed a cedar hedge, and I'm not sure if that's necessary and if it provides buffer, and no neighbor that spoke talked about that, but I wasn't quite sure about the removal of the cedar hedge. So I'd like to understand more about landscaping and tree removal and then the window replacement. I just want to say that, you know, our planet's warming, as we all know. And so I pay particular attention to shade and trees and how important they are. There was a study that just came out saying that open space, if you compare developed property and open space, the open space is usually 8 degrees cooler than the developed area if it's like 80% or more concrete and covered surface area. So I think we need to take this seriously and try to do our best to preserve those trees and provide us with the cooling that we are going to need not only today, but in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. You might have joined late, but we did actually review the landscape plan at the very start of this, just so you're aware.
Thank you, but I didn't hear about the cedar hedge.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll offer the applicant to address that. Is there anyone else online, Scott?
We have one more online, Mary Tierney.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I want to say at the start that I support this project. I have a concern because I live in property that is adjacent. I share a fence line with the
What
property,
address are you at, Mary?
3 Elm Terrace.
Thank you.
And the maintenance of the property, very long term, has been different. If you're talking about maintenance of the property near the buildings that are there, and maintenance of the property near the fence lines where the neighbors are adjacent to the property. I've talked with people at Lake Champlain Land Trust many years ago and asked if the volunteer trees and the volunteer bushes that grow up along the fence could be removed, and they could just mow the lawn right by the fence line to keep everything from getting out of control. And I was told there was nothing in the budget for that. And I don't doubt that that was a sincere response, but I think if we're going to be building a larger facility that is going to be the home for many other people in the area, that there should be a consistent policy of maintaining a neat and orderly landscape near the fence line of the neighbors, as well as the fence lines of the home, the property lines of the buildings on this land.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, just want to check with the board. Do you have any questions based on the comments that you heard?
If you hear the response.
Yeah.
I wanted to say for the record, Dr. Wilewski is working on a personal project for me, but I don't think it'll impact my ability to make a decision.
Do the applicants want to respond to any of the comments that you heard? So, John.
I think we can talk about the comments that Sharon Busher brought up, which was the landscape, the windows,
The hedge.
the hedge. I'm not sure which would be helpful. The civil plan does show that we're removing the hedge, and we can continue to refine the landscaping plan, which really showed which trees we plan to remove. We're removing 2 of the trees. The hedge is coming out because that patio is intended to function as a front porch more than the front porch. If you see here, I hope you can see this, Sharon. The front porch, as you approach it, you have to go upstairs. It's quite narrow. So if you were in a motorized wheelchair or you wanted to gather more than 2, maybe 3 people, you really can't do so on that porch and just sit out, enjoy your porch, enjoy the neighborhood in the evenings. So we wanted to create that outdoor space. And so that's extending what is a small patio area with an awning behind the hedge now and expand that And it does require the removal of one tree. So that we can actually have a continual surface that again is easy for people to get around on. And then it allows them to have that relationship to the street and connection like you would on a front porch, but it's to the side of the building.
Well,
Other things?
prior to wanting to create an outdoor space for individuals, we have to bring services to the building, the new part of the building. And that includes this collecting the stormwater off of the
Correct.
roof and bringing it into the driveway, into an underground storm system. We also have a few other utilities that are running through that area, and by code, they have to be 10 feet apart from each other. So on a small site, we have to do quite a bit of excavation just to build this addition, which regardless of the patio, we were discovering that the hedge and that tree were in the way of creating those adjacencies. So I don't know if there's a clear way to say that from the civil perspective, but that was also causing some of the disruption on that side of the site.
It does.
Thank you. Any final questions from the board?
I do. Just a follow-up on the question I have about the annex. I'm just gonna assume that this building is gonna be something.
Yes, actually, I think there is a code path forward without a sprinkler system, but part of our programming and conversation with the parents, we felt like this use, it was best to have a sprinkler system. Yes. And once you have a sprinkler system, you don't necessarily have to provide egress from windows. But again, we wanted to provide windows that, you know, had egress from them. So another layer of safety and access.
Any other questions from the board? Mary, I see that you have put your hand up again. If you have something.
I'd just like to ask for clarification. You said that you have previously talked about the landscaping ideas for the property. And I was wondering if you could talk about what the routine maintenance of the landscape is going to be, because previous to this, it has been substandard. And I'm just wondering if that's going to be addressed differently as we move forward with the project.
Thank you. Is that something you'd like to address?
So, previously, when it's been master leased to another entity to operate, they actually they take on the trash removal, the snow removal, often all aspects of the property, not just using it, right, for whatever the intended purpose is. So, when CHT is the landlord and present, and it's a different arrangement where we will be mowing the grass, we will be plowing. At the design advisory board, Dave Conger brought up the 3 trees along the back. I believe when we had done some clearing previously, that was an issue for people, and so then we installed, when we were maintaining some of the volunteer trees, that precipitated the installing of the fences that are in the backyard, the wooden picket fences that are now there that sit inboard of our property line. And then those 3 large trees to the back are over the fence, but in or on our property line. And I had an arborist come out and do an evaluation on Monday morning, and they recommended that middle tree be removed because it has a crack in it, and fundamentally it will get squeezed out by the other large trees. There's some weedy stuff. I would say everything that has a burr that can stick to you grows underneath those trees. I got covered. I was still finding them like that night after work. So like all of that stuff would come back. I think we want it to be tidy. We want it to be manageable. We may add some planting beds over time. It sort of also depends on who your residents are, how interested they are in participating in gardening activities. We try to encourage that on our properties. But we try to have perennials and trees and grass and do our best to maintain it. And we will be more intently involved since the operational model is different with this project.
The on-site staff? That's gonna be.
That's
every day,
support staff. So this is supportive services. So we don't know today who the 10 residents are going to be, right? So there's some communal space, which is just like any of our other buildings. We usually do community room. This is a little bit more intentional. It has more of a living room, dining room, community room, and then just a regular kitchen like in your apartment. And we sometimes do that in our community rooms in our larger apartment buildings as well. So that's similar. And then there's 10 individual apartments, 2 bedrooms, and then 8 1-bedrooms. And depending on who those 10 people are, they will have their own individual requirements for support, the things that they need to conduct their daily activities. And we anticipate that some of those folks will have low to moderate needs, and about a third of them might have higher needs, where they might have a support person with them more frequently or more of the day, or require additional help. And so we would have an agreement with a service provider that would come in and provide those services to those 10 individuals. So it's hard to know exactly what each person's going to need because we don't know who they're going to be yet, right? Until we're ready to move people in, but they will be around.
I just say that we expect that there will be staff there regularly during the day.
Of course,
For a variety of folks.
and possibly
It
overnight.
would be pretty unusual to have these 10 folks living there without stepping in, talking, checking in, being on site on a regular basis.
And if you had a high individual who might need 24/7 care, some of the 2 bedrooms would be appropriate because they may have 1 or 2, or it might take multiple staff to provide that level of coverage. But again, we can't commit to a specific number or hours, not knowing who the residents are, because you've got to meet the needs of the people who live there, ultimately.
Not seeing any final questions for the board, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is -25-306. This is 204 Pearl Street. I do want to note that this is under limited review. So our purview is quite limited under this, under 44. We have, they're out there. I think the applicants in the hallway, so we'll give them a minute.
I'm an applicant as well on this one. And I was getting them out of the hallway. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. You want to follow?
Yeah. Again, for this particular property.
Sorry,
Let me
check on the group and that's where I realized,
swearing in again. Okay, yeah.
just for anyone,
Sure.
you're already sworn in. Can you raise your hand if you want to speak on this item? Because I was then, thank you. Okay. And then do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury on this item?
I did.
Assuming if I can't hear you online, that you have said yes. Okay, now over to you.
Once again, Michael Monte, CEO of Champlain Housing Trust, here to talk about Pearl Street. And another property in particular that we are changing its use from an SRO to a family shelter. In this context, we have had SROs in our portfolio. We've had a few. And frankly, the SROs have not functioned well in the current environment in Burlington, and especially downtown Burlington. And we closed the building down because we were not able to provide the level of safety and security for the handful of residents who were living there, and really said, we can't really sustain this. And really, frankly, from a housing perspective, from our perspective, SROs are not necessarily well-functioning sort of facilities for housing folks. It relies on individuals who are there who can work together, share kitchens, share bathrooms, and it's difficult. We still have 2 others, one in Winooski and another one in the south end of Burlington, and we're continuing to look at how to repurpose them in a way that's really going to really serve the community. So once again, this is a property that if you look at it, it's shut down, it's boarded up. We can continue to operate it as an SRO. We prefer not to. We really found ourselves really clearing the property and shutting it down. This use is for family shelter. And this opportunity really is, again, addressing I think I heard today, 84 families who are in the coordinated entry system right now who are seeking housing, who are currently homeless. And so our partners in this work often is many of the other nonprofits in the community, our partners in this work will be CVOEO, operating the shelter, and the resources for that are sort of in process. I don't know if, Scott, if you've gotten anything from or communication from anybody from the mayor's office around.
I did 15 minutes ago. About,
Okay. Me too.
Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Me too.
saw the same thing.
Well, I didn't see that actually. I haven't seen exactly the language. I have the language that was proposed. Anyway, there was concern about us sort of ending this particular use and moving on to a different use prior to us extinguishing the HUD requirements on the property. And so we'd be asking today, and maybe Scott has very specific language that you would if you are granting a permit today, that you would do so under the condition that all of those HUD requirements would be satisfied and those conditions would be met. And that.
Agree to condition granting the permit.
Good. So that's the city attorney's language, and that sounds great to me. And so we could proceed then, I think, with hopefully approval for this proper use with those particular conditions. And so just with that, Donald, I don't know if you want to go ahead and answer any questions, and I'm done over here. I'm over here again. Thanks.
I can walk people through what the physical changes we're proposing, which are not a lot. Basically, we're gonna, on the exterior, we just need to change some railing heights, eliminate a couple stairs so that there's children present. We don't have more of a fall risk. And we're gonna make a fenced-in play area in the back. So as far as the exterior of the building, that's pretty much the extent of it. And we will, on the inside, we'll be adding some bathrooms, remodeling the kitchen, changing the locks and, repairing some doors, but replacing things like the fire alarm system and that sort of stuff. So it's really pretty light on the remodel part. The real important for us is just, being able to get started because, cold weather is around the corner. So does Paul want to speak now or? Yeah, I think he's, good.
Happy to. Hello, Paul Dragon. I'm the Executive Director of the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. We'll be operating the family shelter, 204 Pearl. Michael spoke about the need. There are a lot of families on the waiting list. We're currently operating the Williston Barrack Shelter. That was planned to be closed by the state on April 1st, so we took that over. That has a term of February, so we are hoping to get this done and move the families that we're currently serving into 204 Pearl. We're looking at up to 9 families. We have 24/7 coverage. It is a high barrier shelter, so we vet all the families coming in. We do background checks. We always have 2 staff people on site at any given time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I say something? We have partnered before, and a good example of how we have partnered most recently was with the Champlain Inn. The Champlain Inn was a good example of it being purchased during COVID and providing some support. Frankly, I was always never proud of sort of that building. We didn't own it, someone else owned it. And we were very happy to sort of take it over and provide a substantial level of renovations. And I think now, as a citizen of Burlington, if you were to go by the Champlain Inn, you could sort of see the level of sort of the quality, I think, of both the work that we did on the property and how it's different in the context of that neighborhood. and how we're sort of being able to have CVOEO there as staff, providing the support to make sure that people are doing well within that building. So I think that's a great example of the partnership we have. We have two other properties up at St. Albans, which we do this with. We actually co-operate the pods as well. And so this is a particular, this relationship is not new. And I think actually has been successful now for a while. And I think Champlain is a good example of that. So.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Just a reminder, it is limited review.
I do. So, I know that this one is under the limitations of municipal bylaws, but I just wanted to comment on, I know that you're gonna, raise the level of the railings in the fronts to 42 inches each. I did notice looking at the building that the railings on the west side look like older style railings that were probably very similar along the front. If you were intending to do any restoration in that respect, or how are you gonna go about doing that?
I think, I know there are some historic ones. We have, right now we're just showing like a square spindle. Depending on, what exactly how we detail. I'm a little concerned about, one of my biggest concerns is just like, how do we integrate with the turn portion of the post and that sort of thing. And, usually when we get down to that level of detail, I'm talking with the carpenters on site and really just trying to figure out like, we want to leave as much stuff as intact as we can, but some of it is just like, well, how rotten is it and that kind of stuff. So we're sensitive to the to the historic nature. But the other part is that it's going to be kids in the building and the building is all lead paint. Every single thing in there is lead paint. So it's just like, I'm trying to balance out, safety of the kids and and the integrity of the railing is probably the biggest part. We haven't really poked around too much in, how much is remaining from the original stuff.
I'm sure the carpenters will do a fine job on that. He's noting that it is a lovely building.
Yeah. Essentially
At least some
unchanged.
detail on that.
Yeah. From the pictures that Mary provided, really, most of the features are still there.
And the only other thing that I would just encourage you to do is to concentrate as much as you can on landscaping, just to, for the street effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I have.
The lead paint, plan is to seal it, remove it?
No, not really practical to remove it. Really what we do is we call essential maintenance practices. Basically just need to keep the paint in good shape so that it's not flaking and creating a hazard. But it's really about maintenance and that sort of stuff. But anything that comes out, it's really a positive as far as eliminating more hazard. So, but it's, we have, unfortunately, we have a ton of buildings with lead paint, so we're very well versed in that kind of process.
You mentioned the two on-site staff. Can you just briefly explain what their role is?
Yeah, they're housing advocates. There'll be 3 on during the day, 3 on in the evening, and 2 for the overnight. And their main job is to bring people in, do a thorough assessment. We do background checks on all the parents because there's kids there. And then they move them through a housing plan. So see where they're currently at. And the idea is to try to move them along into housing as soon as possible. They do wraparound services. Employment's a big thing. If we can get people employed, childcare, access to WIC, Medicaid, all those benefits. So that's their job. The ultimate goal is to get them housed.
Just an ancillary comment. I'm Mary O'Neill and I'm the project manager for this review. Under the allowable review, which would be setbacks, I've pointed out that the condensing units on the site plan are within a required setback. In a conversation with Burlington Electric about energy efficiency this week, Brian Riley cited this project as having been under his review, and he said there will be 7 to 8 condensing units there, which aren't shown on a site plan. I just would ask that you be accurate in your revision to the site plan about where those condensers are going to be located.
I think we showed them on some of the flat roof portions on the. So the site plan, yeah, so we're showing, we have opportunities. This is a flat roof here. These are very low slope roofs here. So, you know, we could potentially relocate these ones over here. We haven't made the final equipment selection, so we might be able to have a couple less condensers. But between this roof area and this roof area is really excellent for it because it's a very short span, so I don't have to worry about loading on there. We could also put them in here. So there's certainly other locations other than that. We have this porch here, which we're not going to not be accessible because we find that this this area is kind of attractive nuisance. So we're gonna have this door locked out. So we could move them up on the porch. So we have plenty of other opportunities for locating those condensers in other than that location right there.
Any other questions from the board before we move on to public comment?
Thank you.
Couple of you back there raised your hands, and then is there anyone online for this one?
Online, and want to testify on this item, raise your hand and we'll put you in the queue.
Well, we'll start with those of you. Yes, share who you are and where you live.
My name is Andy Arp. I'm a neighbor of 204 Pearl.
I am too.
We
Liz Siegel.
At what address?
15 Lafayette Place. And I mostly came here to listen today. But I was surprised to find out that other people who spoke about the CHT properties had similar experiences. I thought our property, like the care for the outside of the house and CHT's responsibility to the property, I figured our experience was a one-off, but apparently not. It's a commonality in how they're managing their properties. And it sounds great to have a group home, a high barrier shelter. I don't really understand how the zoning for that would work, but we would want to see whatever they're proposing be what the building is used for, as opposed to trying it out and then running a different kind of shelter. So I also don't know anything about condenser units, but I saw in the drawing that there was a couple of them on the flat roof. I didn't realize there would be 7 or 8. I don't know if they make a lot of noise, exactly how they function, but that contribution to the outside of the house will impact the immediate neighbors. So,
And we are actually very connected to this property. We share a driveway, we share common space, some of which we are talking with Champlain Housing Trust and CEO about how that's all going to be working. But like Andy said, there has been many problems over the last 15 years, and we are just, have a little PTSD, and we're really afraid that it's going to go back to, unwanted people coming at all times, yelling, making a lot of noise, standing outside, honking the horns. With the last incarnation, it was drug deals at all hours. People hanging out on our property. They couldn't smoke on that property, so they came to smoke on our property, and we're just leaving cigarette butts and bird seed all over the place, and it was never taken care of. And we are excited if this is going to work the way it says it's going to work, but I don't have a lot of faith with what we've seen in the past. So just want to go on record for saying that. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here that wants to speak on this? And did anyone raise their hand online?
No.
If you'd like, in here. Welcome
I
to,
need to do this again.
yeah.
Sorry about that. So I appreciate that. I do. And we have 375 buildings. We have lots of properties. That's not the reason why these properties are not maintained. The only reason why you're seeing these properties is because, I'm not sure if I should say this out loud, but they weren't in good shape. They weren't taken care of. We're here because we didn't think the SRO was working and it wasn't working well. And that in the last 3 or 5 years, it's been horrible. The amount of money and resources we've spent to try to get it so it's secure, so the drug dealing doesn't happen, so those issues don't happen, has been substantial. We still continue to work through those issues. This is not the only property we've shut down. We've actually shut down another one besides this one because of the conditions that are surrounding the properties themselves. And we can't really be in the properties 24 hours. It's going to be very different with CVOO and that management of that. Same is true of the last applicant you had. It's going to be different because of that. We come to you only because it's not working and a recognition that it's not working and that the only way to get it better is through this process. We could continue to operate it as an SRO. That would be terrible for us. And I think for the community and for the neighborhood and for our neighbors, we don't want to do that. And so this is the best solution in terms of resources, as well as meeting community need with the staffing and support we have. So there's no argument from me to the neighbors, just an understanding that we're leaning into trying to resolve it to a place where, in fact, it's much better for everybody. And out of the 375 buildings and all these properties that we have, you haven't seen all the others. Because hopefully and mostly they're working well. And as we sort of work through those issues at the various properties, we do much better with those properties in terms of management, maintenance, and responsiveness. So I just want to say that.
I was just gonna say, just broadly, the removal of SROs when we need such transitional housing is, I understand that it was hard to maintain, but it's unfortunate that it sounds like that it didn't work out, but because we have such need for individual transitional housing.
We agree and we do. Do that.
It's helpful. Everyone online can hear you better.
I mean, actually, Paul could join me on this one. We don't disagree that housing is essential, so that's not the issue. And I don't, and we agree that transitional housing is critical. We also agree that supportive housing is critical, and we have done that. But having people in individual units, having people is a much better system, and enables us to really ensure the safety of all the residents. Than having people in rooms and coming out into the living area where there might be somebody who's going through something or doing something that's illegal or whatever. We can't manage that. It's almost impossible to manage that internally in a building. SROs have worked in larger cities where there are 300 or 400 of them, and you could actually manage it in a bigger way with staffing on site, all and everything else that goes with it. Can't do that here because it's just too small to really pay for that to work, to make that work. So I get it, appreciate it.
And I would just like to say that, I'll talk loudly, if you've never lived next to one of these buildings, then you have no idea what goes on. And we've lost tenants, because this is now our second home. We've lost tenants because of what's gone on in the SRO before. And, you know, was a very, if we had understood the terminologies of like bad neighbor and, you know, you can't do it if all these problems are coming up, then we probably would have made a stink much earlier with what was going on with the Champlain Housing Trust before. So it's a shame that it can't work, but if you've had your property like abused for 15 years, then you would understand better why we wouldn't want something like that next to us. And we're kind of afraid that if this doesn't work, it could go back to that. And it just is not, it just doesn't work as it is. So,
The particular structure of this house is like a time bomb if you run it. It's just too complex with too many individual personalities getting mashed together.
Any other questions from the board? Not seeing any, so with that, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item is ZP dash 95-197-9397 North Street. We have the applicant for that item. And then is there anyone else here to speak on this item online or in person? Is there anyone online, Scott?
No one is raising their hand.
Okay, if you would like to speak on this item, haven't been sworn in yet, if you would raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalty of perjury? Your testimony tonight?
do.
You want to give us an overview of the project?
Michael Alvanos, JRMA Design Studio. So this is a project for redevelopment of a site on North Street in Burlington. We were here, I want to say about a year ago, to permit, I think, 10 units originally on this property. Over the course of the last, 6 months, we had to go into a redesign based on some initial pricing that we had. The result of the redesign was to reconfigure the interior of the building to go from 10 units to 17. We primarily went from a series of 2 and 3 bedrooms down to essentially a 1 in bedrooms and studios. All things are being equal on the previous project. Essentially, we, nothing is changing in terms of the pre-approved, the previous project in terms of site layout, FAR ratios. I mean, essentially the building's exactly the same. We just can reconfigure the interior. So that's why we're back. We're essentially back to ask for permission to go from the original 10 units to the 17 units. But essentially the major impact of the project is we have an existing portion of the current building that's on site that is in extreme disrepair. The existing foundation, the walls, there was a dirt floor essentially on the rear portion of the building at one point. When the new owner took it over, the concept originally was to potentially just revamp the interior of the project, but based on the zoning that we have on the site and based on the fact that we have enough room, we decided to propose the building that's in front of you today. So again, it's a previously approved project, just here to go over the increase in the density.
Any questions from the board for the applicant?
Like there are a couple of staff comments, maybe on things that are still missing on biking, bike parking, inclusionary housing.
Yeah,
Any response to those comments?
Yeah, the bike parking, essentially, we will be offering bike locations inside. I mean, fortunately, I didn't put it on the plan as of recently, but bike parking underneath the canopy in the back of the where the covered parking in, as well as potential bike parking at this corner of the building on this rendering. I know we owe a landscaping plan, which we're doing very limited adjustments to our current landscaping. We have to add we've proposed a series of trees on the civil plan, but we just haven't notified that we haven't come up with a species yet. The TDM, or transportation management demand.
TDM transportation demand. Yeah, that's a significant difference with the greater unit count. They need a bona fide TDM plan and they don't have one.
Yeah.
So that's needed.
I'll be honest, it's our first time doing that, so we're definitely going through the process of figuring that out, but obviously we don't get our approval unless that's part of the unless we submit it to staff. There's a couple of small, in my opinion, pretty small items that we're going to be correcting the FAR, mailbox locations. Again, bike parking, I think, is something we'll provide staff. You know, the inclusionary housing, again, on previous projects I've done, we've worked with the city, provided staff with that information. We have no objection to any of that, so.
Do you expect design changes if there's going to be an accessible unit
There is definitely accessible units on the ground level for this.
with the way it's designed?
Yes, absolutely.
There are questions from the floor? Okay.
Maybe try to push that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the staff's comments. So you're not recommending approval with conditions, you're recommending that we continue the hearing until we have the necessary information, which seems appropriate in this.
Yes, they just plain don't have anything for DEM.
Yeah.
It seems like a step too far for kind of condition. Up to you guys.
Okay, because it looked to me like we would, we're okay with it, that you could administratively do all that, but there's quite a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I basically said, if you decide it's close enough, it needs at least those conditions.
I know in the previous project had something similar in terms of conditions of approval. You know, I didn't realize that the TDM was going to be the thing that hung us up. If that, I mean, I know it is something that could hung us up, but I didn't realize, you know, it's a previously approved project in terms of size, scale, of the building. You know, I would love to see a recommendation for approval with staff, you know, giving us a chance to provide that. Again, we just haven't done it before, so something that we want to take our time and making sure that we're doing. So, correct.
So it sounds like we have one comment online and then one in the room. Do you wanna come up then?
Oh, can you actually pull up the landscaping piece? I'm not sure which one it is, yeah.
Is this one helpful for you?
Yes. I'm Kirsten Isgro. I live on 124 Park Street and at the Champlain Housing Trust property. And there's one to the north of it also. So it abuts where I believe you're going to be putting a parking lot. And I'm all for infilling. It's going to definitely change the landscape of our neighborhood for sure. My question, both for me and my neighbor, is the fencing, the fence line. I know and I can't remember which of you I had emailed after the first hearing, where it says, yes, there's an existing fence, but that fence has been there for over 35 years. It's in dire need of a replacement, and especially if we're gonna have parking that's gonna be shining into our backyard, I would suggest that a fence be part of that plan, and I didn't see that revision from the wording from the last hearing that you had, was it said that there was going to be no new fencing, but the fence existed. And the other question, given what you just talked about with moving from 10 to 17 units, is it the same footprint or is it a bigger footprint?
Exactly the same.
Okay, it's just internally, there's going to be more smaller units. And you're talking about the brown building at the moment that is like decimated, that is being torn down. There's a current.
This is the building that sits at the top right-hand corner of the lot there.
Yeah.
And yes, there has been some.
Because they've gutted the one building across from or above the Himalayan market, and you're talking about the building that's right behind that just weird brown shed thing. Okay, and that's what's going to be removed.
Yes.
Okay, right. That's my only comments and concerns. Yeah.
Sharon, I know you didn't raise your hand earlier, but you've sworn in on the previous item, so we'll have that here if you want to share your comment on this item.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was going to tell you I didn't plan to speak, but then I decided I wanted to say something. So I spoke initially when this came through the first time. But my comment is that this is a section of Burlington where families actually do live. And I just wanted to, I know you can't comment on the change, but to go from apartments that were 2 and 3 bedroom that would have accommodated couples and children to pretty much studio and 1 bedroom precludes that. And I think we miss out on supporting families and attracting families in Burlington. I know it's lucrative to provide more housing, but I feel that it's unfortunate that it's at the expense of eliminating families from finding housing also. And I felt that I needed to say that. I didn't realize until I heard the presentation. I should have, but I didn't realize how this was being accomplished. And so I just needed to make that statement because I truly believe in having housing that's available for every family and every individual. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome to respond to the comments that you've heard. If there's anything additional that you would like to add, if you feel like you covered, that's fine.
Nothing additional yet. I mean, we do have 2-bedroom units inside proposed in an existing building on the upper level. You know, we also have to recognize that there are a number of people that, you know, especially people who are transitioning from, you know, certain households to, you know, to, you know, the need for 1 bedrooms for studios is really great too. I mean, I understand that Sharon's bringing up, you know, the need for family housing, which I agree, but there is a strong need as well for people who need those, you know, those single units that they can occupy. And, you know, a lot of these people are, you know, I don't know the politically correct way of saying it, but they're just transitioning from one spot to another. So, that's the kind of housing that these guys tend to provide as well. So again, I just would love to, you know, we are really excited about this project. It's been a long time coming. I've worked with staff before on providing the requirements. I'd love to get an approval and just, you know, provide staff with as much as they can to get them through. So.
Thank you. Any final questions from the board?
I would just say if this continues and I mean, we'll just that TDM piece, because we're shifting from like in a family unit, right? You can have like a single vehicle where you're like commuting or doing other things. And so just strongly thinking about the bike parking and like coming back with that. Alternative means of transportation and just, yeah, that general like your generation stuff. Because I think it would be prudent to potentially exceed the minimum requirements, considering you have many more individuals who are not necessarily sharing resources as you did in the original project.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing and move on to our next item, which is Starr Farm Beach ZP-25-312. Do we have it on the lobby? Okay.
Hello.
Hello, if you wouldn't mind, just, we'll swear in. Just wanted to check if there's anyone else to speak on the items, swear in everyone at once. So, okay, if you would, raise your right hand and do you swear, that the testimony you give tonight is true and correct under pains of penalty of perjury?
Yes.
I do.
You want to tell us about the project, anything?
Sure. We have a long history at Starr Farm Beach, and I don't know if you guys know the area, but it's seasonal. And our camp is we've owned for 25 years, but we've got a family camp that we've had 5 generations there, and we're unfortunately, we have to tear it down and we're rebuilding, but it's gonna have a basement. So that's probably the only change because we're staying on the same footprint. So it's leaning this way. Most people, they tilt their gutters, the whole house tilts, so the water runs off perfectly. And so it's, I don't know, I think it's straightforward, but I'm not sure.
That's fine. Any questions from the board? Anything you want to go over specifically? Definitely one of the more straightforward ones on our agenda.
Yeah, sounded like that.
All good. Okay, and then I think we have everything that we need. Doesn't sound like there's anyone else to make a comment, so we will most likely deliberate tonight.
Okay.
On this item.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, and then we swear an officer that item, did we make it? Next item is ZP 25 170 South Willard Street. Finally. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak on this item? We will just swear you in then. Do you swear that the testimony you give tonight is true and correct under pain of penalty of perjury?
I do.
This one was relatively straightforward as well, but anything you want to start with and share?
No, I think we've been through the advisory board at this point. We've proposed this adaptive reuse of the carriage barn to add a new dwelling unit. We did make a couple visits or a couple cycles through advisory board. We took the feedback that we received. I think we put a lot of effort into putting together a project that, captures a lot of what is there, retains a lot of what is there, and also creates a really great new space that, serves a purpose now and for years to come. So I'm happy to answer any questions for it, but I don't have a lot of new on this end since we last were here.
Any questions from the board? Could have done these on consent. All right. Thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing and get into our deliberative.
Thank you. Can I ask just a procedural question, just in terms of next steps for the board following tonight, in terms of
Yeah.
decisions that you make?
We'll deliberate tonight
Okay.
and then most likely make a decision, and then you'll get notified by staff of that decision.
Okay.
Pretty quickly,
Great.
within a day or two, usually.
Our deliberatives are also open, so you're welcome to stay
Okay.
if you want.
Yeah, no, I just was curious, just from
We're
a
probably going to go through deliberative backwards also, since
Yes.
it's
All right.
used, so just hey.
Maybe we'll stick around for a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.